Among all the elements in the universe across the entire periodic table, one stands apart: carbon. But silicon, why not silicon? It has the same external layer electronic structure, it forms the same number of bonds, and still, carbon is the only element selected naturally for the bricks of life. Here is what really makes you wonder. Why aren't we made of silicon? Drop a line in the comments if you can unveil the secret. Why are we built from carbon and not silicon? We will unveil the marvelous chemistry that carbon is capable of and try to answer the question about an alternative world of natural silicon life. Carbon's gift is its ability to form bonds of astonishing complexity, bonds that build molecules, molecules that build life, everything that grows, reproduces, and dies, from the tiniest grass leaf to the gigantic sequoia tree, from the smallest microbe to the largest mammal, is woven from carbon's molecular framework. Where there is complex life, there are humans. And where there are humans, there is culture, even civilization. This is the chemical story of how carbon doesn't just make life possible, it makes us possible. Welcome to Chemistry Forging Civilizations, the podcast where molecules meet meaning and atoms shape history. Chemistry, the science of transformations, has made and changed humankind. In this episode, we'll explore the chemistry that sustains animal life, from energy to structure, from signaling to survival. Plant life? That's a story for another day. Can silicon do it? Does carbon have a competitor? Carbon sits at the head of group 4 in the periodic table. Silicon sits immediately below in the same group. Is it a coincidence that life chose carbon as its backbone? With 4 valence electrons and a Goldilocks level electronegativity of 2.55, carbon is perfectly positioned to bond with elements on both sides of the table. It shares electrons generously, forming covalent bonds that are strong, stable, and endlessly versatile. Its outer electrons reside in 1s orbital and 3p orbitals, each holding a single electron with matching spin. But here's where the magic begins. Carbon can hybridize these orbitals into sp, sp2, or sp3 configurations, unlocking a variety of geometries and bonding patterns. This flexibility allows carbon to bond with hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, halogens, phosphorus, and most importantly with itself. Chains, rings, branches, lattices, carbon builds them all. It's the molecular architect of complexity, the language of life. Let's imagine life as a language and the elements as its alphabet. The main letters C, H, O, N, P, S, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sulfur. From these we form words: OH hydroxyl, COOH carboxyl, NH2 amino, PO4 phosphate, CH3 methyl, CO carbonyl, SH sulfhydryl, and more. These words combine into sentences: glucose, fatty acids, amino acids. Sentences become chapters: malise, cellulose, proteins, lipids, ATP. And finally, the chapters form books, the kind we all carry within us, DNA. Carbon doesn't just support life, it writes it, atom by atom, bond by bond, in a language that spans every species on Earth. Carbon, one element to rule them all. In the realm of molecules, one element rules them all. Carbon, the quiet sovereign of the periodic table, holds a power unmatched by any of its neighbors. Its electronic structure is a masterpiece of balance: 4 valence electrons in a 2s2, 2p2 configuration. After hybridization, carbon forms 4 half-filled orbitals, ready to bond, ready to build. It can be tetravalent, sp3, trivalent with a pi bond, sp2, or divalent with 2 pi bonds, sp. No lone pairs, no crowding, just pure architectural freedom. Compare that to nitrogen and oxygen. Nitrogen, 2s22p3, is trivalent but carries a lone pair, adding repulsion and polarity. Oxygen, 2s22p4, is divalent with 2 lone pairs, even more repulsion, even more polarity. The higher electronegativities of nitrogen, 3.04, and oxygen, 3.44, make their bonds highly polarized, so that neutral frameworks are difficult to create. Carbon-carbon bonds are strong, around 348 kilojoules per mole, perfect for building long chains and complex frameworks. Nitrogen-nitrogen bonds, fragile at 163 kilojoules per mole, oxygen-oxygen, even weaker at 146 kilojoules per mole. You've seen this instability in peroxides like hydrogen H2O2, reactive, short-lived, unsuitable for life's architecture. Even multiple bonds between nitrogen or oxygen are problematic. N2 is too strong, too inert. O2 is too reactive, too unstable. Neither can form the diverse, flexible scaffolds that life demands. What about silicon? The element just below carbon. It has 4 valence electrons too, but its orbitals are larger and more diffuse. Poor pi overlap. Weak silicon-silicon bonds, approximately 226 kilojoules per mole. Strong polar silicon-oxygen bonds, approximately 452 kilojoules per mole. Great for rocks, not for life. Silicon builds silicates, not cells. Carbon, by contrast, forms stable chains, rings, and polymers. Alkanes, aromatics, polyenes. Polysilanes and polygermanes exist, but they are UV sensitive, easily oxidized, and structurally limited. Carbon is the only element that can write the language of life in full, with strength, flexibility, and elegance. Forged in the fires of the stars, it is quite literally the one element to rule them all. If carbon is the one element to rule them all, then silicon is the heir that never claimed the throne. Germanium, even less suited. Its bonds are weaker, its structures more unstable. It's not a contender for life, at least not as we know it, but don't count silicon out entirely. It may not build biology, but it powers civilization in a different way. Let me know in the comments if you know what this importance is based on. Spoiler, it is not glass. Silicon will get its own private podcast in the future. Germanium will get a well-deserved mention in the Silicon podcast. Supporting animal life, carbohydrates and lipids, fuels, fats, and molecular messaging. Life is made of a symphony of chemical reactions, too vast to cover in a single podcast. But today, we'll zoom in on a few of the most essential players, all carbon-based, that keep the life of mammals, including ours, running. Let's start with carbohydrates, the body's first go-to fuel. At the heart of it all is glucose, a 6-carbon sugar that powers everything from brain activity to muscle contraction. Its cousin, fructose, plays a supporting role, but glucose is the star, the molecule your body prioritizes when energy is needed fast. When there is extra glucose on hand, your body stores it as glycogen, a branching polymer tucked away in your liver and muscles. This storage process isn't simple. It's a biochemical relay involving multiple enzymes, each handing off the molecule like a baton in a molecular marathon. Looking at glycogen's molecular structure, you may think it is the baby brother of cellulose, which you might recall from the podcast about the chemistry and influence of paper on civilization. The well-known glycosidic bonds between glucose molecules are here too, only in this case not only between carbons 1 and 4, but also between carbons 1 and 6. Break down glycogen and you get pyruvic acid, the gateway to the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle. This cycle is your cell's power plant, generating ATP in the presence of oxygen. But what if oxygen runs low? What is known as an anaerobic environment? Say, during intense exercise. Your body switches to anaerobic glycolysis, producing lactic acid and beta-hydroxybutyric acid. Lactic acid builds up in your muscle, that familiar burn after a sprint. Beta-hydroxybutyric acid, it's more than a backup fuel. It also helps regulate inflammation and metabolism. And from fat metabolism comes acetoacetic acid, another energy source your body taps into when glucose is scarce. Now let's talk lipids and sterols, the multitaskers of molecular biology. They store energy, build cell membranes, and send signals that help cells adapt and respond. The fatty acids essential for animal life are long-chain fatty acids. Have you noticed the numbers between brackets in the chart? What does 16.2 or 20.4 mean? If you knew beforehand, I'd like to know. Leave a word in the comments and I will know you are knowledgeable. Here's the secret. The first number is the number of carbon atoms in the chain. The second, the number of double bonds. So, EKT16TU is a saturated fatty acid. No double bonds, straight and stable. 20.4, that's arachidonic acid, a polyunsaturated fatty acid with 4 double bonds, flexible, reactive, and ready to signal. These long hydrocarbon chains are hydrophobic, they repel water, but at one end sits a carboxylic group, COOH, acidic in nature, which is polar and hydrophilic. It loves water. This dual nature makes fatty acids perfect for building cell membranes, where they form bilayers with water-loving heads on the outside and water-fearing tails tucked inside. The double bonds, which you know now are the result of the sp2 hybrid orbitals of carbon, these double bonds in the chain are points where the fatty acid is unsaturated, meaning these double bonds are relatively unstable and free to participate in chemical reactions. Let's talk fats, not the kind you avoid at lunch, but the VIPs your cells can't live without. From palmitic to arachidonic acid, through oleic and linoleic, these molecules shape the very texture of life. How flexible your cell membranes are, how signals travel through, and how your body responds to injury. They participate in the signaling of pathways of proteins to the cell. Palmitic acid, it's more than just a building block, it acts like a molecular switch, tagging proteins with a carbon-rich tail in a process called S-palmitoylation. This helps proteins dock onto membranes, a bit like plugging a USB into the right port. Oleic acid, on the other hand, is the peacekeeper. It is crucial in the stabilization of the double layers that cover cells, one hydrophobic facing inwards and one hydrophilic facing outwards, that help prevent rigid, gel-like phases. Think of it as the oil that keeps the gears of your cells turning smoothly. Linoleic acid, the essential one. Your body can't make it, so you have to eat it. It's an omega-6 fatty acid, meaning its first double bond is 6 carbons from the tail. Besides participating in cell membranes bilayer, it's crucial for making prostaglandins, the molecules that scream damage when tissues are injured. Now meet arachidonic acid. the drama queen of inflammation. It's the precursor to prostaglandins, leukotrienes, and other eicosanoids that regulate everything from blood flow to immune response. When your body needs to react, arachidonic acid is often the first responder. And what happens when you bundle fatty acids together? You get triglycerides, like trioline, a molecule formed when three oleic acid chains link by an esterification process to a glycerol backbone. In blue, it's a key player in metabolism of lipids and fat absorption, your body's long-term energy vault. Let's not forget phosphatidylcholine, the workhorse of cell membranes. It's built from a glycerol backbone in black, two fatty acids, a phosphate group in red, and a choline head also in red. This molecule forms the bilayer matrix that hosts transporters, receptors, and ion channels, the infrastructure of cellular communication. Now, let's clear the air about cholesterol, the misunderstood waxy molecule. It's hydrophobic, meaning it hates water. Quick quiz: how does cholesterol travel through water-based blood if it's hydrophobic? If you know, drop a 1 in the comments. I'll know you're one of the sharp ones. The answer? Lipoproteins, tiny lipid cores wrapped in hydrophobic protein coats. LDL, low-density lipoprotein, the so-called bad cholesterol, delivers cholesterol from the liver to your tissues. HDL, high-density lipoprotein, the good guy, brings excess cholesterol back to the liver for recycling and elimination. But cholesterol isn't the villain. It's a molecular logistics expert. It helps make vitamin D, protects your skin from drying out, and serves as a precursor for steroid hormones. It's not just floating around, it's working hard behind the scenes. So the next time you hear fat or cholesterol, remember, these molecules aren't just part of your diet. They're part of your design. Sculpted by carbon, fine-tuned by evolution, and essential to the chemistry of life. Supporting animal life, amino acids and peptides. Let's shift gears from fats to the true builders of life, amino acids. These are the bricks your body uses to build proteins, and every brick has a clever design. One end is the acidic carboxylic group, COOH, the other is the basic amino group, NH2, and in between, a carbon backbone that can be straight like a chain, alkyl groups, or looped like a ring, aryl groups. Now imagine this: your body is a construction site and proteins are the skyscrapers. The most common one, collagen, the steel cables of your body. It makes up about 40% of all your protein and holds together your connective tissue, cartilage, bones, tendons, and skin. Its structure, a triple helix, 3 peptide chains twisted around each other like a sailor's rope, stabilized by extensive hydrogen bonds, shared covalent links, an equilibrium of hydrophobic and hydrophilic interactions, and even quantum-level forces called van der Waals interactions. It is molecular architecture at its finest. Glutamic acid, once converted to glutamate, becomes a key player in your brain, acting as a neurotransmitter that helps neurons fire and form thoughts. It is undoubtedly responsible for your understanding of this podcast. Tryptophan is your mood molecule. It's the precursor to serotonin, which affects happiness, melatonin, which regulates sleep, and vitamin B3, which fuels metabolism. Ever feel sleepy after a big dinner? That's tryptophans at work. And then there's glutathione, your cellular bodyguard. It's a tripeptide made from glutamic acid, cysteine, and glycine. Its job? to neutralize free radicals, mop up heavy metals, and protect your cells from oxidative stress. In the diagram you'll see its atoms color-coded: carbon in black, oxygen in red, nitrogen in blue, and sulfur in yellow. A molecular rainbow of resilience. Supporting animal life, energy carriers and redox systems. Energy carriers and redox pairs are the currency and accounting system of metabolism, controlling flux, protecting macromolecules, and integrating nutrient state with growth and stress responses. Cells run on a small set of molecules that capture, shuttle, and release energy with exquisite timing and control. ATP, ADP, AMP sit at the center. ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, composed of 3 phosphate units linked together by high-energy anhydride bonds, a ribose sugar ring, and the amine adenine. ATP is your body's molecular battery, a compact, rechargeable pack of energy. Each phosphate bond is like a spring-loaded trapdoor, ready to release a burst of power when you need to move, think, or heal. The anhydride bonds have the capability to drive otherwise unfavorable reactions energy-wise, like muscle work, biosynthesis, etc. The ratio between the 3 adenosine phosphates, diphosphate IDP, and monophosphate AMP, is the crucial marker that sets pathways for the supply of energy through catabolic pathways when energy is scarce, or anabolic pathways when it is abundant. To this end, it signals enzymes like ADP kinase. Energy metabolism is inseparable from the chemistry of oxidation-reduction redox reactions. When a compound loses 1 or more electrons, it is oxidized. To maintain balance, 1 or more other compounds must be reduced, gaining electrons. If you watched our podcast about the influence of copper on civilization, you may remember that we showed how 2 monovalent copper atoms can undergo self-reduction to metallic copper and self-oxidation to bivalent copper. NADP, nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide phosphate, in its hydrogenated form, supplies reducing power to anaerobic reactions as well as antioxidant guard. FAD facilitates redox reactions when 2 electrons are transferred at different stages, thus having 2 different redox potentials. Supporting animal life, nucleotides, vitamins, and molecular essentials. First up, nucleotides. These are the monomeric units, Lego blocks, of the nucleic acid polymers DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid, and RNA, ribonucleic acid, both of which are essential biomolecules within all life forms on Earth. Nucleotides are each one made of a nitrogenous base, a 5-carbon sugar, and a phosphate group. Remove the phosphate and you get a nucleoside, a stripped-down version still vital for signaling and metabolism. Together, nucleotides form the genetic scaffolding of life. They don't just store information, they transmit, regulate, and respond. Now let's talk vitamins, tiny molecules with massive impact. Your body can't make most of them, so you have to eat them. And they're not just nutrients, they're coenzymes, antioxidants, and molecular switches. Vitamin C, ascorbate, helps mature collagen and fights oxidative stress by recycling vitamin E. Vitamin A, retinoids, regulates your vision and gene expression. Vitamin D3, cholecalciferol, governs calcium phosphate balance and modulation of the immune system. Vitamin E, alpha-tocopherol, shields membranes from lipid peroxidation. Think of it as molecular armor. Vitamin K1 activates clotting factors by carboxylating glutamate residues through Ca2+ binding. essential for blood health. And then there's the B vitamin family, the metabolic multitaskers. Vitamin B12, cobalamin, uniquely cobalt-containing, supports methylmalonyl coenzyme amutase and methionine synthase, the Thai fatty acid breakdown to 1-carbon metabolism and DNA methylation. Niacin becomes NAD equals NADP+, powering redox reactions. Riboflavin turns into FFAD, facilitating electron transfers. Pantothenate forms coenzyme I, the molecule that shuttles carbon fragments through metabolism. Others help with transamination, decarboxylation, and 1-carbon transfers, the fine-tuning of biochemistry. Let's not forget glutathione, heme, bile acids, and osmolytes, molecules that detoxify, transport gases, absorb nutrients, and stabilize cells under stress. Together, these molecules form the operating system of animal life, coordinating energy, information, and adaptation from the molecular scale to whole organism physiology. Carbon isn't just the skeleton of life, it's the storyteller, the engineer, and the guardian, shaping every molecule that makes us who we are. We've journeyed through the molecular machinery of animal life, from the sugars that energize us to the lipids that shape us, the amino acids that build us, and the vitamins that protect us. All of it orchestrated by carbon, the quiet conductor of life's symphony. But our story doesn't end here. Next time, we'll explore how carbon fuels the green world, the plants that feed us, oxygenate us, and form the foundation of every ecosystem. Vegetal life has its own chemistry, its own elegance, and its own civilization-shaping power. Subscribe now, and you'll be the first to know when our next episode drops. Until then, stay curious. And remember, every breath you take is a chemical story waiting to be told.